Can we prove that God exists?
That's an unbelievably broad question, isn't it? I mean, there are probably almost as many definitions of what God is as there are people who believe in one or more. Like, you are really going to have to be more specific there. I mean, you won't. It'll be the one you think is real, and you probably won't even clarify that much. Mostly to make sure as many people are on board with you as possible.
Well, it kind of depends what we mean by proof.
Well, that's a funny way of saying no, because if you're just going to define proof to be whatever you need to be correct, that's not exactly going to be convincing. Well, unless your audience is a bunch of people who have yet to form a cohesive worldview and the critical thinking that tends to require. Oh, look, this is a show for kids. What a shock.
True proof only exists in maths.
That's a pretty goddamn sketchy way to say that. Yes, you can only prove certain mathematical things 100%, like as a facty fact type way, but you make it sound as if that's what it needs to be in order to be proof, which is wrong. Also, that kind of thinking is probably why Theology Boy and Religy Grills have a bad habit of trying to use mathematics to prove God exists. Which it might, if he were a piece of calculus. But according to your lot, he's not. So maybe stop trying. It's annoying. Mostly because I'm bad at maths, and yet I still know that you're wrong.
I can 100% prove to you that 2 plus 2 is always going to equal 4.
Yeah, see, fun fact. Just saying 2 plus 2 equals 4 is actually wrong. Well, it might be right, but it depends what those numbers actually represent. Because yeah, 2 glasses of whiskey plus 2 glasses of whiskey equals 4 glasses of delicious whiskey. But if we have 1 glass of whiskey chilled to 2 degrees C and pour in another glass of 2 degrees C whiskey into the same container, then 2 plus 2 equals 0, because I already drank both the first 4 and these additional glasses while you were distracted trying to figure out where I was going with this. Haha, fools.
But even scientists need a certain amount of faith.
No, that's like the entire point of science and the scientific method. It removes the need for things like faith, because it's about figuring out things that are true regardless of how you feel about them. Sure, if you want to talk some silly shit like, well, they need to trust their instruments, but the thing is, if their instruments are wrong and they're getting results different from everyone else, they are going to know soon enough. That's just not the same thing as the kind of faith you mean when you say faith. You mean belief in the absence of evidence. But they don't do that. What they do is believe with evidence and then checking to make sure that belief was properly placed, while other people check to see if that belief was in the right place too, and so on and so forth. It's like not even remotely the same thing.
In order to even do science, they have to believe that there's an order to the world.
No, you don't. No, seriously. Science doesn't need things to be a certain way. The entire point of science is to figure out how they are. It's not relying on them to be any particular way. If we already knew that, nobody would be doing science. And wouldn't that be kind of a sad day? I mean, great, we know everything. Now what? Oh, right, drinking, yeah.
That things will react in a certain way because forces like gravity are at work.
Again, no, science merely shows that's how it is. No one is hoping that they do that. Jesus, you sound like a flat earther when you say this kind of garbage. Scientists are just trying to make sure everyone thinks that the world is X way kind of nonsense when that's not how it works. Seriously, the best way to science would be to have no preconceived notion of how the thing worked and just test it until you do.
Proof in science is similar to a law court. Lawyers speak of proof beyond reasonable doubt.
Oi, no it isn't. Don't you fucking dare pull that kind of card. Law courts are decided by people, either a judge or a jury hearing what evidence is available and then deciding if they've been convinced by it. Science is proven by things working. No one decided that gravity was right and that it's got to be true. People experimented on it over and over and over again. They made predictions with it, and those predictions were shown accurate and so on and so forth until it was established that gravity is a fact and that we use the theory of gravity to explain it. And no, before you start, I don't give a damn that this video is for kids. This crap is just wrong. And if this person can't be accurate, they need to shut the hell up.
They can't mathematically prove that someone did the crime, but they can build up a case using things like confession, eyewitnesses, and documentary evidence.
Oh, you are still going with this. No, science is way beyond a reasonable doubt. At least with the things that become theories. This isn't just, maybe gravity is a real thing that makes me smash my face into the floor every time I try to walk and think at the same time. But perhaps it's the gusts of wind from over my head of pigeons thrusting me to the floor. But there aren't any pigeons out today, so I guess it must be gravity then. No, again, not how this works. Don't get me wrong, there is room in science for everything to be wrong. It has to be able to be wrong to be science. But that doesn't mean that the things we understand about the world are on a knife's edge of believability, waiting for some teeny tiny thing that's just going to change everything. That seldom happens.
And it's this type of proof that I think we can offer when it comes to God.
What, the type of proof that only needs to be good enough for an individual to say, sounds good to me? Yes, I agree, that is all you can do. And it's just not good enough. And in my humble, sexy opinion, it's not good enough for anything but that. And is not even remotely to the same standards as we expect from scientific proof. And the fact that you compare the two things means one of two things. You are a lying little so-and-so that's trying to trick people, and yes, children do count as people, I know it's weird but it's true, into thinking that all science needs to be is convincing enough, or you are too goddamn stupid to understand what science is. In both cases, I would not trust you to be teaching children about anything, considering they will come away less correct having interacted with you. And the last thing this planet needs is more wrong people.
So here are some of those arguments or proofs, if you will.
Well, cool. Thanks for letting us know that they are going to be extremely unconvincing from the outset. And I will also allow you to use proofs in quotes because that's the best they will be. Yeah, I'll prove it. Wink. Of course you will.
The argument from morality.
Oh, f*** my asshole with a sledgehammer. What? Look, their video is for kids. I didn't say mine had to be. And yeah, I'm upset because the argument from morality is the most worthless proof of them all. Seeing as how freaking subjective morality tends to be, and that morality as humans practice it is not even close to proof for anything that she's likely to say.
The idea that we have an inbuilt sense of right and wrong. That we have an instinctive sense, for example, that rape is always wrong.
Kid show! Okay, I'm not going into the specifics because f*** that. But yes, there's lots of things that people instinctively feel is wrong. But there are lots of people who have no feelings as to whether a certain thing is right or wrong. They just don't care. You would think that an all-loving God might have made it so that never ever happens. And no, that has nothing to do with free will and everything to do with the fact that objective morality isn't a thing. Morality, as I see it, is merely a trait of don't hurt the people around you and they won't hurt you. Everybody wins. Sounds like natural selection and not God to me, which also explains how people can be born without it. Well, aside from, well, God's just an asshole sometimes. Shrug.
This points us to a law inside of us, which in turn points to a lawgiver, someone outside of ourselves who's put that law inside us.
No, it doesn't. I'm having a lot of today, aren't I? Because you just keep saying wrong things. Even if it were true, even if morality was objective and a provable fact, which it isn't, because otherwise laws that don't all conform with each other wouldn't exist. That doesn't mean a thing has to exist that specifically made it that way. The same way a gravity giver doesn't need to exist for gravity to work. That would just be how it is, and all it would prove is that is how it is. The why is something we would have to work out. And people saying, cause God though, would be just as wrong as some fuckwit saying that cars go vroom cause NGismo make cars go burr.
Then the aesthetic argument, which is basically just a fancy word for the idea that art and beauty point to something outside of us.
You know, you are goddamn lucky I am wearing a helmet right now, because I think my eyes just rolled so hard into the back of my head you would be able to see the horrors that lie within. But pretty, though, is a bad argument, because but ugly, though, disproves God. No, seriously, if you think that things being nice to look at is evidence for God, then things that aren't nice to look at must be proof against. And considering the fact of the nightmare fuel behind my face holes, it's no wonder I don't think God exists.
A character in a book called Chasing Francis about a church pastor who loses his faith says this:
Herder, look at pretty things, that improved the God man. At least that's what I assume it says, because what else could it? But really now, like the previous proof, the only thing that is shown by humans having a sense of aesthetics is that humans are known to have a sense of aesthetics. But like the previous, they differ from person to person, sometimes wildly. That's why your favourite album is probably not the same as most, if not all, of your friends. That's why there's that weird person you know who's really into insects or something like that, when they make your skin crawl. Again, if there's a God-given fact of aesthetic, then why isn't it universal? It's almost like there isn't, and you are just regurgitating wrong, dumb arguments.
The object of all great art is beauty, and it makes us nostalgic for God.
Fuck you. The object of all great art is beauty. That is the stupidest thing I think I've ever heard anyone say about art ever. In my extremely correct opinion, great art is about eliciting emotions. And no, that doesn't mean only happy, clappy, hooray, fun times emotions, but any and all emotional reactions. Good art should be able to make you happy, yes, but also sad, or wistful, or really fucking pissed off, or anything. The idea that it's not art if it's not pretty is the most painfully childish notion of artistic merit that I've ever heard. And you should be embarrassed to even repeat that if it's not your own opinion.
Francis Collins, who's one of the world's leading scientists, used to be an atheist.
Don't even with that shit. Never seen an atheist turn crispy boy that wasn't, I never really thought about God, and then I did and thought, cool, sounds good. And would you look at that?
And so I migrated, without much thought about it, into agnosticism and ultimately atheism.
The same is pretty much true of our boy here. Didn't really think about it, and then when he did, he went for whatever else. Seriously, show me an atheist that is an atheist because they've actually spent time reasoning into it, put time into their perspective on faith, and actually thought about it, who then at some later time turns into a God-loving cream sandwich, and I'll show you a unicorn, who possibly has some kind of profound head trauma.
And the thing that finally convinced him that God existed was looking at a beautiful frozen waterfall.
Oh, right. So you are a liar.
Over a 2-year period, with much help from wise mentors and the writings of C.S. Lewis, I slowly and rather reluctantly came to the conclusion that belief in God, while not possible to prove, was the most rational choice available.
That's good to know. Although I do think it's honestly preferable that you simply be an honest idiot rather than a smart liar. Although, to be completely fair, you could also be a stupid liar. I mean, it was so easy to check what the man himself had to say on it. It seems kind of idiotic to not, do that. Also, the opinions of one scientist on God, though, are irrelevant, especially when way more of them are of the atheist persuasion than your average humans.
Then you've got the argument from desire. The feeling that there's more to life than this points to the fact that we don't belong here.
I have the desire to kick you all off my frickin' planet, and goddammit, every single one of your proofs so far have been subjective feelings, and feelings that not everyone shares, or shares the same exact views of. I knew these were going to be bad, but Jesus, glue, huffing, Christ, that's really awful. I mean, these aren't even, hey, we found a guy full of bullet wounds, and you with the I hate that guy poster for target practice in your house kind of evidence, which wouldn't be definitive, but is way better than, we feel you might have killed this guy because I really like flowers.
C.S. Lewis said, if I find in myself a desire which no experience in this world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is that I was made for another world.
Well, the thing is, that's not a sentiment that makes me feel all warm and fuzzy. So by your rationale, it can't be proof of God. Sorry, not sorry. Also, that's cute but dumb as an actual philosophy because humans, right? They are made out of zillions of electrical impulses flying all about, and sometimes those things can misfire, or be broken, or just plain different, or whatever. So someone developing a fetish of leprechauns wouldn't suddenly mean there's a reality where they can the little green hats off them all day. It just means you don't want to see their search history. Or maybe you do. I'm not judging. Weirdo.
Then we've got the argument from cosmology, another fancy word which comes from the Greek for world, cosmos, and study, logios.
The argument from stuff, though. Finally, something that's actually not purely about your feelings. Hooray! I mean, it's still going to be bad and easily refuted, but hey, at least we are trying to not be completely asinine, aren't we?
The fact that the existence of the universe points to the existence of a God who created it.
Nope. The existence of a universe points to, and get this, the existence of a universe. And that's it. Any other conclusion that you come to without other evidence to that point is just you making a leap, probably because that's the answer you want, so you simply don't think about it. So glad you are trying to mold young minds. Real inspiring stuff.
When scientists began to talk about the Big Bang theory in the early 1930s, atheists tried to get rid of that theory because it supported the Christian idea that the universe had a beginning.
The thing is, it isn't though. Whether or not atheists of the many moons ago didn't like the idea of the Big Bang, and it's funny that the only place I can ever seem to find a claim like this is in religious media, well, it doesn't matter, because the Big Bang Theory describes something that is nothing like any biblical telling of the formation of the universe. And anyone comparing the two would know that. Also, the idea that atheists have any say in what the science shows is patently ridiculous, but that's par for the course at this point, isn't it?
And if the universe had a beginning, then something or someone must have kick-started that process.
Big Bang doesn't describe the beginning of the universe, it describes the expansion of the universe. Maybe you should know what the things you are talking about mean before trying to explain them to children, eh? Although that is a bit of an ask for any apologists, really. Understanding things is for those dumb smart science guys.
Then you've got the argument from design. Even atheist scientists talk about the universe being finely tuned.
I'll bet they don't, because it really isn't. I mean, riddle me this. If I told you that I had designed a program perfectly made to print Hello World, it should look something like this. But for some reason, instead, the executable that I have made is several terabytes of junk data that does absolutely nothing to help in the creation of the output Hello World. Would you call that a finely tuned program, or would you call that a terrible program that just so happens to output Hello World? That's the universe and life as we know it. Life works despite how badly the universe is made for it, not because of how good it is.
If the tiny change was made in something like the gases in the air or how close the Earth is to the Sun, then life would be impossible.
Incorrect, obviously. A tiny change, aka actually massive change of the Earth's distance to the Sun happens every freaking year. And yet I have had to live through multiple of the buggers. Do you get paid more for being wrong? Or is it something that you are just that passionate about?
Is everything perfectly in balance because of chance? Or could it be that someone has put it all together, someone's finely tuned it?
Listen here, you don't get to bring up the Big Bang and then ignore the rest of cosmology that explains in excruciating detail how no one needed to finely tune it. The forces at play are what led things to be the way they are. Now you could say that God do that? No. But that's the same shit as before wearing a different hat.
And look at how complicated humans are. Could this maybe point to a God who designed us?
As with all questions of the could this mean this open-ended kind of nature, the answer is invariably no.
Isaac Newton said, "In the absence of any other proof, the thumb alone would convince me of God's existence."
Ah, right, fair enough. Frog goddamn real, I guess.
Then you've got the argument for resurrection. This needs a whole other video, but if Jesus really rose from the dead, then this shows that he must have been God.
No, actually, everything you have said have been non sequiturs. But worse than that, because even the premises have been false. The idea that you are any kind of educator absolutely terrifies me, and I really, really, really think you should stop.
Wait, before you go, I have something super important to tell you. It's life or death. It will change everything forever. Nope, wait, it's gone. Oh well, probably wasn't important. But while I have you, don't forget to comment, subscribe and notify. And if you want more of my smexy voice, check out Mrs. Six's channel Spoonstaff Stories, where I narrate and voice all the videos, and she does the work. And if you want to support the channel, check out the merch store for cool t-shirts, or check out Patreon, memberships and PayPal to support directly. Finally, follow me on the medias of social to get completely pointless guff and to keep up on the latest releases. Oh, I just remembered what I was going to tell you. Whatever you do, don't touch the